All right, FireFit athletes, we're back out today and we're here to talk about 5 hacks for a hasty hose drag. You like that alliteration?
Ask anyone around the area about accuracy. Arctic activities are abundant, astonishing, astounding, and A1 on all accounts.
The hose drag portion of the course is the part of FireFit and the Firefighter challenge that's meant to simulate advancing a hose line to the front of the structure that is on fire. The hose drag happens after the athlete has completed the tower, done the hammer, and then run the hydrants. It's the second last thing right before the dummy. It is an interesting part of the course that really separates a great run from a mediocre run. The hose drag is 75 feet. And by the time you hit the end of the hose drag, the hose will be around 500 pounds of force to advance it. It starts at almost nothing at the beginning and then ramps up. During the hose drag, the athlete has to pick up the nozzle, place it over the shoulder, run the 75 feet, shoot a target where you knock down a plate, close it, drop it past a finish line for the hose, and then progress to the dummy. We count split times from when the athlete touches the nozzle to when the athlete has closed and dropped the nozzle. An elite hose drag time is 6 to 7 seconds. During the hose drag, you get 2 seconds of penalty for every inch that the hose is short of the finish line.
Right to jail, right away.
Once you're done, you want to get to the dummy as quickly as you can. So today, we're going to go over 5 different hacks to get your hose drag moving really quickly. All right, hack number 1 is an aggressive approach and pickup. Now, there are a few elements to this that I'm going to go over. Hand position, foot position, how you change directions. So the first thing we're going to talk about is our hand position. As you're approaching the hose, you have to make a decision on whether or not you're going to pick up with a dominant hand or if you're just going to pick up with your inside hand. Personally, I switch hands depending what side I'm on. It is a faster pickup. It only saves you though maybe about a half a second. So you have to decide on what's worth it for you as an athlete. So if I was left hand dominant on this side, I might come across and then bend down and pick up and do the hose drag. I'm right hand dominant. So on this side, I'm going to use my right hand to pick up and then move. If I'm on the yellow or blue side of the course there, then I'm going to pick up with my left hand and advance so I don't have to step across it. The fact is, it doesn't matter. As soon as you step across, you're starting to lose time. But if it sets you up for a way better pick and explode out of the hole, it might be worth it. So Brad Dix, world record holder, he steps across. I don't. So you can still run really fast times doing it. However, if you're going to take a lot of time to practice, I do recommend switching hands depending on what side you're on so that you don't have to step across the hose. It's easier to just set in the right position and then go. The other thing is then the hose is on your outside so that when you throw it, you don't have to step across it when you throw it. First part of your approach is making sure you know which hand you're going to pick up with. The second part of an aggressive approach is where your feet are going to land. You're going to have to spend some time playing around, and the way you do that is I want you to come and I want you to imagine if you had to sprint, like if you're doing a 60-yard sprint, how would you set your body up? Your feet want to be in a similar position, and then you want to line that up with the head of the nozzle to where it's easy for you to pick up. So some people are going to be a little bit back where the nozzle is kind of right underneath your center of gravity. Some people are able to come from this position where your back foot is right by the nozzle, and then when you grab, it's over your shoulder. That allows you to not come as far back and maybe save half a second. So you're going to have to play around with that. But the big thing that's really important is when you're coming around this last pylon, I want you looking where your feet are going to land. Not at the nozzle. I want you staring where your feet are going to land, and then you plant that foot right where you're looking, and then you're going for the handle and making the transition forward. If all you're doing is just looking at the handle and you have no plan for your feet, they can end up anywhere. You can end up way far away. You can end up too deep. The most important thing is getting your feet in the right position and in an explosive position, and everything else is built on top of that. So make sure you get your feet in the right position. You know which hand you're using, you know where your feet are going to be planting. Now it's time for the pickup. And this is the most important part of that approach and then change of direction. When you pick up this nozzle, I want you to treat it like a punch. So you're going to grab this nozzle and you're going to drive it in front of you with a straight arm. I want your arm to be fully straight. You're going to punch it across, but this elbow, I want it to be high. So what happens here often is people pick with this nozzle and then you can see that the arm's low like this and they'll run almost to the first pylon, fighting that weight, trying to set it on the shoulder. That's going to really slow down your pickup. What you want to do is as you come out of the hole, you want to punch this nozzle as far as you can. See how my arm is straight? And then across like this to your opposite hip. So one more time, I'm going to punch with a high elbow all the way across to my opposite hip. So I'm going to pick here, high elbow, and now it's locked in. Your hose should be locked in your first 3 steps out of the start. If you make it to that first pylon and you're still fighting to set your shoulder, you're going to be losing a lot of time in your hose drag. So straight arm across to the opposite hip. That's how I want to see you picking up the hose. So 2 things that go wrong here on the pickup. You set your feet, everything's good. The first one is you're running like this with it out to the side, trying to, and that's such a weak position, trying to set it now up and over and onto your shoulder. The second thing that goes wrong in the pickup is what I call the rainbow pickup. So what happens is you set, you pick, and then it comes up like this, way high, and you can see it standing you up tall. You have no drive, there's no momentum moving forward. So there's this big arch and then across. That comes because you know that you're trying to set it across, but instead of punching, it's this big wild swing. So I'm gonna do a pickup at pace here, and I want you to see the aggressive punch and set across my shoulder. You can see there, I had this set into my shoulder within 3 steps of the change of direction. That means now, all of the driving that's coming out of my legs is driving into my shoulder, which is driving into the hose, and it's building that early speed that makes it easier further down the drag. 2 more points about the hose pickup. We've come in, good foot position, good change of direction, hose is set like this. I want you to be looking basically 5 to 6 feet in front of you. I don't want you looking too high because you can see that as soon as I start to raise my head, my torso starts to raise and now I'm in an upright position. That's not a good athletic position where I'm driving. So I want you looking 5 or 6 feet ahead of you and all the way until it's time to shoot, you're gonna remain in this position. The last thing I don't wanna see is the bunny hop. I see this all the time. People come around, they're approaching and they do this and they hop in. If you watch receivers in the NFL, you watch any athlete doing a shuttle run, nobody hops into a change of direction. You don't see receivers do a juke and then hop and try and change direction. It's slowing you down. The reason you do it is you're tired and you're trying to build some elastic energy into your muscles to get out of the hole. So I understand why it's happening. You have to fight that. This, from the final pylon to that hose, is almost a straight line. So it's a straight line in, it's a set, and it's a turn. No hopping, you gotta stop hopping. So hack number 1 is all about an aggressive approach. You know which hand, you know where your feet are landing, you know where you're looking, and you know how that hose is being set on your shoulder. All of that happening before you start moving or in those first 2 steps really sets you up for success. The second hack is to explode. So this might sound a little obvious, but it's really important to understand in the hose that because the weight of the hose increases as you progress down the course, if you start slow, you will not pick up speed as you go. So the goal is to start as fast as you can here and then maintain that speed. Also, the faster you start, the more momentum and inertia you have towards the end when it starts to get heavy. It's the last thing you feel like doing. This part of the course, you're starting to feel the leg burn, You're starting to question your life decisions on why you're doing this sport.
What the fuck am I doing here?
And now you got to get down, explode out of the hose, knowing that the dummy is next. If you are really trying to set a PB, this is probably one of the most important pieces for you to figure out, is how to come out of this explosively with aggression and speed. Because the faster your hose finishes, the more momentum you carry into the dummy, and then that also helps your dummy to be faster. So this is a really important piece of the course. What I want you to do, when I'm talking about exploding, I'm talking about knee drive. Most sprinters, when they're coming out of the blocks, they're thinking about that real extension of their arms and their knees. So there's real heavy knee drive, and it's the same thing here. I want those first 3 steps where your knees are super explosive to build up that speed. What I want you to notice here is I'm gonna do an at-pace pickup, and I want you to notice how the steps are quick and I'm driving my knees as far as I can forward for those first, say, 3 to 5 steps to build up that speed. Hack number 2 is all about being explosive, which is all about that explosive sprint start and change of direction. The one thing you have to watch out for in this position is when you go to explode, that you're not heading off to the side. It's very important that this change of direction is like a shuttle run. It's 180 degrees. So I'm planting here and all my directions going down the course. I'm not planting here and then running out to the side and then trying to correct, because that's wasting energy. Hack number 3 is to drive. And what I mean by that is once that hose is set into your shoulder, I want you to be in a forward leaning athletic position, and I want those foot contacts to be short and explosive. I don't want slow, plodding foot drags. You want to think about it, it's almost like a trampoline. It's a really explosive push off of each foot, and that forward position is driving that energy into the hose. If you stand up, as you go forward, that hose is going to pull you more and more upright, and you're going to lose all of your forward momentum. So again, you're looking down in front of you, it's set across your shoulder, and the other thing is now you can start pumping with this hand, and that helps to cue your legs and your body to drive and make quick contacts. So I'm going to do a full hose drive here, and I want you to see how I stay leaning forward the whole way, and I start pumping my arm to help with that drive into the hose. One piece that is really important during the hose drag is this arm being fully extended and this elbow locked out. So I have it here like this. That way I've got tension through this arm and into the hose is on my shoulder. If my arm is bent at all, as I progress, what you'll see start to happen is that the weight of the hose starts to pull this to here. Now, in order to shoot, I have to stand up. I'm not gonna have good aim. I'm fighting this. So if you wanna have the best hose drive possible, you need to be fully set across. So I bring my hand like this arm is locked in. Now once this is secure, I can start pumping with my arm. If you find yourself in a situation where you can't set this hose properly, then it might be worth getting that second hand, and you wanna give up as little of this as possible. So you sometimes will have to hang on with this. But again, you see with the weight of the hose, I can really lean into it as I'm moving forward. And then when I go to shoot, everything's nice and in line. Hack number 3 is all about driving and making sure that all of the energy that your legs are generating is going into the hose. The 4th hack is where and how to shoot. I'm dragging the hose. You can see good forward position. My arm is totally straight. And right about here on the Canadian course, you'll see that there's a little square. It'll be a mismatched color in the sport mat. But right now at the top of my vision, I can see that finish line. So that's when I want to start shooting. And when I shoot, I don't look, try to aim, and then open. You see how there's some nozzle reaction there? So if you raise it and try to hit it straight on, that nozzle reaction will cause you to miss. So what I do is once I hit this point, I actually open my nozzle while it's down, and then I go up and through the target, right? So as I'm moving forward like this, it comes open, up through the target, and then I can close it. Now, once you get good at that, you never have to worry about whether or not you hit the target. I just go up and close it and go. I don't even think about whether the target's down or not. You will hit it every time if you do that properly. The next important piece to this hack on where and how to shoot, and I can't emphasize this enough, don't stop moving when you're shooting the hose.
Write that down, write that down!
So there's a real tendency when people are coming like this, they get to the end and then they stand straight up. You see my body's up, I've lost all my momentum, I shoot the hose, I put it down, and now I have to lean forward to try to get going towards the dummy quickly. So what I want you to see, and I'm gonna drag this hose here, is that when I hit this spot and I start shooting, I am still driving with my legs all the way until I close the bail and drop the nozzle. This is the thing right here that can literally shave 1 or 2 seconds off your hose drag just by shooting while you're still moving. One of the things that happens when you're moving really well with a hose is when you drop it, it actually continues to move. Most people over drag the hose. You can see here, maybe I over dragged it about 4 feet. It's wasted time, wasted energy. This hose is the heaviest it is right at the end. So the sooner you can get rid of it, the more beneficial it is for your time. So that's why shooting early, closing the bail while you're still moving and letting go of it, that hose will still continue to move and bounce when it hits the ground, and it'll move forward a couple of feet. So ideally, the nozzle should bounce first somewhere about a foot back from the line, and then it'll kind of slide just past it. What you see sometimes are athletes where this nozzle is almost in the target. This is about 6 feet of drag at 400 to 500 pounds of friction. And now you've got to get to the dummy. You really want to try to avoid that. One of the last points I want to make about shooting with a hose drag is that arm position. So remember, during the drag, this arm is straight and across. This thing is really set. The reason is because now when I raise, my arm is in a straight position. This is a really strong position. So when I open that nozzle, I'm in control of the nozzle reaction, and it's going to be straight. Now, if you are here, what you're going to find is trying to open, you're much more susceptible to that nozzle reaction. These hands are pinned up here. You're going to be much more upright. You're losing all of your momentum. And so that's why it's so important at the beginning, when you pick up the hose, to set it with this straight arm. And then when you go to shoot, it's this arm up, and it works much better for you. The final hack, number 5, is to drop and run. So what I mean by that is, this is about where I'm finished, I've shot, and I close the bail. Now I've got to get rid of the hose and get to the dummy. If I'm in a good position, you can see here that the weight of the hose, look at how much I can lean into it. I've got quite a forward position here. So what happens is, when I let go of this hose, naturally, you see how I kind of fall forward? It should feel like a little bit of a slingshot. And so what happens is when I let go, now I've got momentum towards the dummy, which is really good, because this transition here, you can lose 1 to 2 seconds just by kind of lollygagging and taking your time. You will not recover at this point. You are at the red line. There is no recovering. The only thing that makes it better is finishing faster. So get this hose off your shoulder, get to the dummy as fast as you can. If you make this transition aggressive, then your dummy pickup is aggressive. Then out of the hole with the dummy is aggressive, and your whole dummy drag is gonna be better. And I talked about this in the dummy drag video. I like athletes to think about the dummy drag starting from the drop hose, not when you touch the dummy's head. Even though we, for our splits, break out this transition, the dummy really starts once you drop the hose. So the goal here in the drop and run is to do that in such a way that it gives you momentum into your dummy pickup. Now, I want to talk about how you drop the hose. It seems a little obvious. You just drop it. That's not necessarily that simple. A lot of people have a tendency to try to throw it off their body, which means they're trying to throw it forward. You'll never be able to throw it forward. The weight on the hose is too heavy. So what I want you to think about is actually just letting it go off to the side, not pushing it forward, just pushing it off to the side. So when I paint through and close, now it's just off to the side like that. And now I'm off towards the dummy. If you're in that short position like this, what can happen is this grip can hook your shoulder. That really sucks. That's going to slow you down. It also causes you to have to kind of throw it high and away, which again is a waste of energy, puts you in a bad position to get to the dummy. So just to recap, I'm going to shoot, paint, close, off to the side. Okay, so one last thing. Remember at the beginning we talked about what hand to grab with? If I grab with this hand, and now I'm here like this, and I have to shoot and let go, unfortunately, I've seen situations where the hose drops and then it bounces up and it's hooked guys' legs. It's super rare. It's not something you have to really worry about, but it is one of the benefits of always having the hose on your outside shoulder. It's never going to interfere with your run towards the dummy. If you have it on the inside shoulder, even though it's rare, there is a small chance that it can cause an issue with you getting towards the dummy. One of the things I wanted to make a quick note about is the difference between FireFit and the Firefighter Challenge course. On the FireFit course, the hose drag is on the sport mat, that plastic sport mat. The other thing that happens is there's 3 loops. As these loops overlap and this thing pulls off, it actually reduces the amount of friction that's on the hose. So you'll find that the FireFit hose moves really fast. And this is one of the biggest differences between the American or the Firefighter Challenge course and the FireFit course, is the hose on the Firefighter Challenge course is much more difficult. So on the FireFit course, it's really important to get up to speed real quick and get moving. If we talk about it over here, on the Firefighter Challenge course, you're going to see that instead of consecutive loops, it's set up in 2 U-shapes. The first U-shape comes from the inside of the course, and the second U-shape comes from the outside of the course. The hose drag is also not on the plastic sport mat. So the surface that you're running on drastically affects how this feels. So if it's smooth concrete, really grippy asphalt or cobblestones, it's going to make a really big difference here. If you talk to any of the athletes who are at Dallas, Florida, the World Championships, that grippy concrete or the grippy asphalt we raced on made this hose incredibly difficult. So what happens is, as you pick this up, just like the Canadian or the FireFit course, it's very important to get speed out of the hole as much as you can. But what happens is, when this first loop flakes out and that outer loop connects to the hose, there's going to be a kick and a shift. So what happens is you're going to feel a kick, like extra weight all of a sudden slams into the hose, and it's going to have a tendency to move you from the inside of the course to the outside of the course. So on the FireFit course, we recommend a really straight path towards your target. Some athletes on the Firefighter Challenge course find a benefit to dragging a little bit on the inside, so that when that kick happens and it shifts you, now you're in the middle and you're in line with your target. You can see that when I got about halfway, all of a sudden there was a kick, and then I shifted a little bit to the inside. Now, not every athlete likes that, and it's not totally necessary, but it is something to consider and something to work into your practice to see if there's a benefit for you. You don't want to overthink it too much and be way too out of line. The most important thing, more than your line, is getting speed out of the hole so that when that flake hits, you're going as fast as possible. And the faster you're going, the less that flake is going to affect your hose drag. If you're moving slow, when that hits, it's going to feel like they added 200 pounds. If you're moving fast, you'll feel a jolt. You're able to keep moving through the hose drag. Okay, one more note I want to talk about is verbal cues for coaching and helping each other out. If you guys train in teams or if you're on race day, I want to talk about how you can help your athlete do well during this section. So the second, third, and fourth hacks that I talked about today are explode, drive, and shoot. So we yell that while our athletes are running. When our athlete touches a nozzle, we yell explode. So they understand, get speed, be fast out of the start. Then we yell drive, drive, drive. And that's reminding them to have that set on their shoulder, drive with their knees and pump with their arm. And then we yell shoot when it's time for them to shoot, because we want them to not over drag the hose. So we cue them at the right time so they don't do that. So I'm gonna do a hose drag, and Coach Chris, who's on the camera, is gonna be yelling those cues out while I do it, so you can hear and see what it's like, and you can use that in your own training.
Explode, 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 explode. Drive, 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 shoot.
A couple of things. You can hear Chris being real loud, gotta be loud. But look, earlier I over dragged the hose. Chris yelling at me to shoot got me to shoot at the right time, so that my nozzle now is just past the line. I can get rid of it sooner, and I can get to the dummy sooner. So incorporate those things into your training, and it'll help your times. One of the things that's really important that we talk about is these verbal cues being single words, something that you can shout loudly and that your athlete can hear through the noise of the event. There's music, cheering, and all those things going on. The other thing that's happening is there's a lot of noise in your athlete's head. And at this point of the course, they're starting to think about how they're tired, how their legs are sore or burning, whether or not they're on pace. You need the athlete to be able to push those things to the side and focus on the task at hand. So giving them a word to focus on helps them to ignore the fatigue and focus on the technique. All of the parts of our course, when we're racing as a team, there is somebody running beside the athlete and yelling them their cues through the whole race. And it helps the athlete to stay focused on racing and not being distracted by everything else or being distracted by their body. Those are the 5 hacks plus a couple of extra notes on how to get the most out of your hose drag. You want to approach aggressively, you want to explode, you want to drive down the course, you want to shoot early, and then you want to drop and run to the dummy. Put these things together and be really aggressive during your hose drag, and you're going to be well positioned to set a new personal best. I can't wait to see you on the course. This is Coach Jordan. I'll see you in the next one.
Come on down to the gym, we'll see what we can do. Just hang on. Are you the coach?